Hello everybody, welcome back to 4305 video, and today we're going to talk about how to write a recipe. In the previous video, you've learned some basics of purchasing, but in order to create a purchase order for your menu, you must have your recipes ready. So this video will go over some of the tips and guidelines when you write your recipe for production. Now, the recipe is one of those tools that we use in restaurants to standardize your production, and it would give efficiency to your staff in terms of training and consistency. And if your staff can recreate the dish as you intended to, then you should be able to control your cost. Let's talk about what information should be on your recipes. There are many styles and types of recipes out there, but for the most part, your recipe should include name of the dish, yield, portion, ingredients list, units, amount, directions or method, equipment, time, and shelf life. You may not see equipment and shelf life, and sometimes time may be omitted, but the recipe should include all other information needed for the reader to recreate the dish according to your direction. Ingredients should be in order of use, which means that whatever you use on your recipe should appear first. This would allow readers to easily follow the recipe without getting confused, and be as specific as possible but keep it simple. Let's look at some examples. In this example, the direction is quite specific, but the instruction itself is in a one long paragraph. Let's look at another example of mayonnaise recipe. In this example, the instructions are split into steps with photos. Which one do you think is easier to follow? How about this example? I think the recipe would work for the most part, but then there are some points that can be improved. First of all, look at the ingredients. They're out of order and not in order of appearance. And let's look at tofu. It says 1 cup of cubed tofu. Is that specific enough? Is this a cube or is this a cube? How about shrimp? It says 1 pound of shrimp, but does not specify the size either. Another thing to consider about this recipe is the instruction. Combine the batter together. Well, where? With what? And for frying, there is no temperature range specified. It only says medium-high heat. But the problem is that every stove has different BTU. Another tip while writing a recipe is that you should try to adjust the language based on readers' skills. let's talk about units. Another tricky thing, especially for young chefs and people with less experience, is the units and amount used in recipes. For a trained chefs, they know about how much to use or how big a, let's say 100 gram of onion may be, but for most others, it's not so obvious. When you are writing a recipe, you should have a scale and have a good feel of how much ingredients you are putting down on your recipe. Let's look at a video on a neat trick to how best to keep track of the amount that you use on a recipe.
So the recipe I'm going to be writing today is my passion fruit dressing recipe. Now, when you want to do your recipes, you want to make sure you have a very accurate scale. The difference between a couple grams could be the difference between a good product and a bad product. So I always like to choose my Globe GPS 10. Now, one good thing about the Globe GPS 10 is it doesn't just require batteries. You could actually plug it in, therefore you don't have to waste money on batteries, but if you do want to, you could insert them over here. That is your option. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is turn this guy on. And I'm gonna wait for it to load. All right, now I'm gonna weigh everything out. We're gonna put our rice wine vinegar on here, and we are at 736 grams. And last but not least, we're gonna do a little bit of granulated white sugar, and we're at 469 grams. Okay, so now the next portion is, I'm just gonna create my recipe. So, I think we need just about that much. That seems about right. And then this is going to be our oil. Now notice I'm not measuring anything. A lot of you chefs just like to, cook, and you guys come out with your creations. I'm exactly the same way. I'm going to put our granulated sugar in. Now I'm going to explain to you why this is going to work. Just take my spoon, mix it up a little bit, as I do with these soft dressings. And then I'm going to taste it. It's good. It needs a little bit more rice wine vinegar. Notice, I'm not measuring anything. I'm just cooking the way that I normally like to cook until I get the recipe that I want. All right, let's try this out. Just a little bit more sugar. All right. Take another spoon. Perfect. This is my recipe. Now I want to make this exact recipe again, so how am I going to do it? I got to figure out how much of each one that I use. So I bring back my scale. I'm going to weigh each one again. We're going to start off with our rice wine vinegar, and we're at 618 grams. All right, sugar is at 326 grams. Okay. Now, it's just simple math. I'm going to take my starting weight and my ending weight, subtract it, and that's exactly how much that went into my passion fruit dressing. And there you go. You have a perfectly written recipe.
Thank you again for joining, this time on 4305 Back of the House video on recipe writing. And I'll see you guys next time.